Welcome to the Lightforge. This is Adwikta.
This is Merps, and we are smack dab in the middle of the Ungoro meta. Can't think of anything nice to say, so I guess I won't say anything at all. Let's just continue on.
I mean, there are all these nice and adorable dinosaurs. There are birds. We have insects. Blizzard knows how much we like tar, right? These are popular things among the general population generally. No.
Yeah, tar things.
Tar things.
Tar things and turtles.
Right? I mean, when I ask kids what they want to see, turtle people is always like top 3. You know?
I like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That was good.
So how's Ungoro?
Anyways. So this week, you can tell we're a little bit unenthused. But thankfully, our good buddy Shady came out with something so that we can piggyback on all of his hours and all of his good work. So, Shady, if you are listening, or if you're just out there sensing a disturbance in the force, thank you so much for providing us info that we get to talk about for this week.
This is Shady Bunny, who we've had on the Lightforge quite a number of times. I think he may be our most frequent guest. With F2K.
So, if you guys are not aware, Shady came out with an arena meta report. You guys can see it. Basically, he made a post on the Hearthstone subreddit, also on the Arena HS subreddit as well. You guys can check it out there. It's very comprehensive, and it's actually just only part 1 of a 2-parter.
He's going to talk about other things? What's the other part? I didn't know about this.
The other part would be about plays. This is more about sort of...
This is just about drafting.
Yeah, meta report and drafting.
Okay.
And the other part will be about plays. But I thought it was very well written. Like I said, you guys should definitely check it out. And we're going to use his report as sort of a jump-off point. We're going to take some of the concepts that he talks about and, toss it around a few times.
All right, this sounds like it's going to be an educational podcast.
Is there anyone that's not?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we just rant about how much we hate what Blizzard's doing to the arena.
Isn't that a part of every podcast, anyways? It's educational, too.
Okay. All right. Well, this is going to be more educational because I keep trying to focus on how to do better in the Ungoro meta, and it keeps getting derailed by what's wrong with the Ungoro meta and what's wrong with 7.1. We'd outline the general concepts and we dig a little deep and then we get derailed. So we're not going to get derailed this time like I am trying to do. And we're just going to focus on some of the topics that Shady brought up, which is really good. And it's a lot of things that we've talked about, but kind of on the sides. We haven't been making it a focus, right? We've talked a lot about taunts, we've talked about whatever. And I think Shady goes one step further and kind of identifies what you need in a draft. And I think the first point that we're going to bring up, this is very important, and we have definitely not, punched it enough. I think we do it in our drafts, but I don't think we, talk about it. And then people get to the point, and they're like, I want a War Golem. And you're like, no, don't take a War Golem. Merps.
That was supposed to be a transition or something?
No, you're driving this thing, man.
Yeah. I might be driving it, but you can't leave me with a really weird transition like that. Anyways, Shady starts off... When do I have
any better transitions?
Shady starts off his arena meta report by giving us a few big picture things, right? So he does eventually break it down class by class, but first he talks about, in general, here are some things you should consider. And number 1 on his list is... big minions are very dangerous to draft and to play, right? And part of the reasoning that he gives is that because you look at sort of what are the top classes, right? He identifies the top classes as rogue and mage, and then, you have hunter a little bit below it, right? And it's with big minions, what is the problem against all of them? Well, with rogue, it's envenom weapon, right? It's assassinate, it's sap, all the tools that rogues have. Against mage, it's polymorph, it's meteor, they have a lot of removals as well. And for hunters, unless it taunts, it's just a little bit too late, right?
You never want to play a giant minion against a hunter. You have never wanted to in the entire history of Hearthstone Arena, and you still don't want to.
Right, right. And if you do draft a big minion, it should be something like a Primordial Drake, right?
Oh
Which is
yeah,
so good.
that's
Like, I
not a
mean,
big minion though. I don't consider that a big
right.
minion.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like
It's a spell that has
it's a
a
spell.
taunt. It's like a ridiculous spell.
Right, right. It's yeah, yeah, exactly. So,
So yeah, so well, just to make sure, when we say big minions, we're not talking about Bog Creeper necessarily. Like Bog Creeper is like half in this category because it's still at least taunts.
Bog Creeper's a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like the things that are really bad are things like Ultrasaur, are things like War Golem,
Eldritch Horror.
Eldritch
Yeah.
Horror, right? Like Volcanosaur, it adapts twice. It could taunt, it could have like whatever you happen to need. It's like a half step up as far as like big minions go, right?
Right, right.
And
It's still a big look. It still suffers from some of those issues. For example, against a hunter, right? Like, even though it can adapt twice, maybe you're just dead. Maybe you're just dead to a hero power next turn, right? Or a kill command to the face next turn.
well, a smaller minion wouldn't help either.
Yeah, yeah. Like at the same time, it's sort of yes, like we're back to like sort of, if you guys remember, Shady had his sort of like Shady Mage during a previous meta, right?
Well, last time
then,
he came on here was what he was talking about. He was talking about the Shady Mage for
Yeah.
MSG.
But right, and then you know, he really sort of pushed the idea that, you know, if I'm drafting a big minion as well, I want something that does something for me, right? Like, doesn't just get out there, sit there, and then have to wait until the next turn for it to do something. Like, those are very dangerous cards. And Shady's argument in this article is that it's basically, you know, more dangerous now just because of like the top classes and the cards that they have. It's like, it's not just rogues that used to have assassinates and stabs. It's now rogues that have envenom weapon as well. So you really don't want
If
to
you face a rogue, you can't play a big minion. You just can't. It doesn't matter if it has taunt. You have to get a pretty good read before you play it because they're going to have stuff. Like,
Yeah.
unless you're playing a big minion before their turn 5 and you're like, there's just sap, that's it. Or like, you know, they don't have a dagger yet. But you just can't do it. And that in itself is a pretty big block on big minions. And like one of the other things that I want to bring up about big minions is, like, if you think about how you have 30 cards in a deck, right? You have 30 cards in a deck, you need to put stuff in it, and you used to have 6/2 drops and 3s and whatever. Now you have the same amount of 3s, you have the same amount of 1s, you have the same amount of 4s pretty much, but your 2s are hollowed out, right? There's not a lot of 2s. This is since 7.1. So how many 2s do you have? I don't know, 2 or 3 real 2s? And then you have 2 or 3 additional floating cards, right? Probably 2 of them are spells, 1 of them is an additional minion, and then you have everything kind of shifting to a bigger picture. Now, in this way, would you rather add a couple of extra free damage into your early game or to smooth out your like mid curve with like a loot hoarder, for example, or even like a novice engineer? Like, even if you don't have access to like the Tortolian like forager or like Pyros or whatever, you want those like high valued small cards. And those small cards that draw you another card, if you want the card advantage. And you do want the card advantage. There's still a lot to be said for card advantage. But that is so much better than just having one giant minion. Because...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sorry. So, basically, you're talking about, like, the Cabal Chemists instead of the Boulderfist Ogres, right?
Right. Yeah. Sorry, I thought you were going to take over and keep going with the point, not just... finish my point and stop.
I thought you were going to explain it. All right,
I was,
guys,
but you stopped me to finish my point, and then you did not go on with it.
It's okay.
Okay. Well, now I've lost my train of thought. But yeah, big minion's bad. That's what we have up here on the board, and that's what we're sticking with. Big minion's bad. So I was going with the 30 card thing. So there's 30 cards, and you're adding stuff to it. So before, I had a soft cap in my head before 7.1 where I only wanted 3 cards 7 mana or above, or else I can't play it very efficiently, right? Like, if I have more cards than that, it either needs to be because either my deck is insane about taunting and like curving and all that other stuff, or it's because my deck sucks, and that's the only way I win is to I just happen to curve out, and then I have a lot of big cards. But generally, I only wanted 3. In 7.1, you get 1 additional card, which is usually a big one, so it became 4. So now I'm okay with 4 big things. Anything more than that, I'm a little skittish about. But with Un'Goro coming out, we have a lot of really good big cards that are 7 mana or above. right? Just Volcanosaur, right off the bat. It's a very good and big card. Primordial Drake, another big, like any of those big giant epics, they're all 7 manas or above, and you want to pick them when you get offered them. So these spots in your deck, they're already filled. Like, unless you're picking one when you don't have them and it's in the late draft, you should expect that you'll be offered a couple of these over the course of your draft, just like true premiums that you don't have a choice in taking. And so when these spots are filled, if you then are taking your War Golems or your, I don't know, like, just other, I don't know, even like Boulderfist Ogres or whatever, then what you're doing is you're eating up those spots. And when you eat up those spots and they don't do anything, you're either going to end up with a deck that's a little too inflexible, or you're going to end up with a deck where you're going to have to go down significantly in value later on. So it's just not a good, like, thing to be drafting at this point, given the Un'Goro offering odds.
Yep. So I think that's point number one. And I don't know, like, I'm pretty much in agreement with that. Like, do you find any disagreements there?
No. But, like, I mean, practically speaking, I don't think it applies too often because, like, Volcanosaur is, like, half of a giant minion. Like, Sata Threshodon, for example, is, like, half of a giant minion. They're, like, okay, right? Like, if you assassinate it, they're not the worst. So they get, like, a little penalty when you're drafting, but not, like, a ton. And those are the ones you're going to see the most often, right? Like, you have the Primordial Drake we were talking about. You have that charging dude. The Devilsaur that charges, and then what else do you have? What else is big? Yeah. The guy that freezes itself, right? The 5 mana 8/8 that freezes itself. Frozen Crusher. Wow. That's not even a high mana. Like, is that even a big dude? Do you really care if they hard remove it? Not really, you know? So I'm sure, like, Shady wouldn't consider the Frozen Crusher necessarily like a giant dude. It's like 5 mana, right? You have to consider it in relation to how much mana you've invested in it. So a lot
Frozen
of
Crusher is 6 mana.
6 mana. Oh, right. Sorry. Okay, so it's kind of a big dude. I take that back. It's kind of a big dude. And okay, you know the article better than I do. Would 6 mana be considered a really big dude, or does it start at 7?
He doesn't exactly specify, right? Basically, he just talks about, like, big minions, and I don't know. I think it's sort of on a case-by-case basis as well. Sort of like, what is big for your deck as well, right? And sometimes you want something that's just a little bit bigger. And I think that's important to realize that, like, definitions, even in a guide like this, like, they do become fluid depending on the draft. So that's sort of point number one.
So my point is, of the cards you're mostly going to be looking at that are big, they're still okay, right? Like, when they get hard removed. They're designed to be kind of resistant to the hard removals. What's really bad are the old cards that don't do anything when they get hard removed.
Right. So after that, point number 2 is basically, you know, this is, I'll generalize this to a bigger point, although this is actually something he brings up in each individual class. You basically see in his draft prioritization sort of how much he values removals, right? In the sort of draft prioritization, removals, and especially like hard removals, and what he calls like premium removals, are like #1 on every single class. So it's basically like, in this meta, removals are super duper important, which I don't think is anything groundbreaking, right?
In a threat and response meta, responses are very important.
So, I mean, what this does is, and we've beaten this into the ground, sort of, obviously, you know, it is frustrating because the amount of those removals you get is not up to you, right? It's like, if you get a like, if you have the option of drafting a polymorph,
you're going to take it.
Probably, yeah, you're taking it. Like, there are really not many cards you take over a polymorph. So you're probably taking it, and it just depends on, like, how many do you get? How many meteors do you get, right?
I think Shady's big point here is not so much that, oh, removals are good now, right? Like, everyone knows removals are good. Everyone drafts removals almost every time that they see it. I think his point more is that, look, based on how many removals you get offered, that's how good your class is. Because removals are so important. So what classes are good? They're the classes with the removals. They're the classes like Rogue, which got a ton of removals. Mage, which got like 1.5 removals in addition to Meteor. Like, these are highly, highly important ones. He likes like Shaman, because Shaman has Volcano and Tidal whatever Surge, which is still a removal, even though it's not like a terribly great one. It fits the category, right? So you're
Right.
good in terms of your ability to respond to threats, and that's like, I think that's a very good point. And on the other hand, when you have classes like the class we're about to play, Priest, which was not really offered removal, you're going to have problems. You're going to be relying on a very good draft, right? Like, against the odds of being offered these removals, or you're just gonna have your like one hand tied behind your back when you're playing this game.
Yeah, that's and one of the problems when you not really a problem. So like, God, jeez, my brain is not working today. But basically, what it shows is not just the importance of removals. It shows sort of how you should be using these removals, right? Because if removals are super premium, it also means like when you use them is just as important as how many do you have, and also how many you have sort of goes into when you should use them as well. It reminds me of like the Murloc Knight discussion, right? In terms of when there's a meta shift, and especially when there's a huge value spike or a value depreciation, it changes how you should evaluate, these removals in terms of like, what do I want to get with a meteor, right? What do I want to get with a polymorph? Like, is the size a little bit bigger now, a little bit smaller now? That changes in response to the meta.
Yeah. And right now, especially if you're playing any of the acceptable classes, you're going to get plenty of removals. And when you get plenty of removals, you can freely use them when you have another one in your hand, or you can, like, even use them sometimes when you don't have another one in your hand, if you're just, like, need to get ahead, right? Like, if you are, like, if you're already ahead, you save that removal, and you lose a little bit of resources, or you lose a little bit of tempo, and you're okay, because you want the security of the removal. But if you're, like, trying to fight for the board, like, using that removal up to get the board is fine, even if you're just waiting for the next removal to be drawn, because you know you have removals in your deck. On the other hand, when you're in a low removal situation, like before 7.1 or whatever, you have to save all the removals. Everything has to, like, really have a purpose. Yeah, and I want to put a caveat in here, which is, like, for Paladins, for example. If you have buffs only become removals if you have the board. So you can expend a real removal if it secures your board position, because it gives you another removal if you have buffs in your hand. So you got to think about buffs in a different way when it comes to, and just any kind of buffs, right? It's like your Abusive Sergeants, your Dark Iron Dwarves, or your Blessing of Kings, or your Dino Sizes. Like, they're only things when you have stuff on the board. So it becomes like a slightly more complicated way of evaluating removals.
Yep.
Yeah, and so after removals, I think this is where the silence point comes in. So one thing people keep telling us this, we have not touched it on the tier list, and I don't expect to, but we'll see, is that silences are more valuable in Un'Goro, partly because there's more things to silence, but they're, like, not terribly high value things to silence. You silence and adapt, okay, you kind of got the value out of your silence, right? Like, that's kind of just it. You haven't really, like, gotten ahead. You haven't silenced your, like, 1/1 with Death Rattle 5/5, right? But what they do is they are a response. They do have initiative. They do prevent that Murloc Knight from spiraling out of control. And obviously I don't mean literally Murloc Knight. I mean, like, whatever Un'Goro is pitting at you. Like, even if it's just like a Tar Creeper, right? Like, you silence that, it does nothing.
Yeah. Silence, and Shady specifically mentions Tar Creeper as one of the targets of silence, right? And by silencing a Tar Creeper, what you also do is not only silence the Tar Creeper, you have a choice of accelerating the trade onto the board. Because what a Tar Creeper does is it doesn't just sort of, on your turn add to attack. A lot of times, as soon as the Tar Creeper comes down, and you notice this effect as well, the hits don't happen anymore. Like, stuff doesn't happen on the board for at least a turn or two. It's almost as if just because of the overstated nature of the Tar Creeper, it causes an effect where both sides sort of say, okay, no, this isn't going to happen, right? So what the Spellbreaker allows you to do against all this tar stuff is if you are faster, yeah, sure, it doesn't take that many stats away from the board, but it does allow you to accelerate the trades onto the board and prevent sort of just worse stuff from happening, which is very valuable because these games now, people tend to have bigger boards. And when you have a bigger board, you have more choices. And if you allow your opponent to have a lot of choices, you're just giving them opportunities to either play something to screw you over or draw something to screw you over.
Yes. Unless you also have a filthy deck. And then the longer the game goes, the more chances you have to screw your opponent over.
But no, that never happens. It's always the opponent that has the sick cards.
All right, we'll see about this draft. We're going to do a priest after this, and we're going to have the sickest deck. I can feel it.
Yeah. All right. So those are sort of Shady's big points, which I think, definitely have merit to them. And look, none of this, like I said, is groundbreaking, right? But at the same time, keeping these things in mind when you're drafting, and I especially like his draft prioritization.
Yeah, so I know we're talking about, like, Shady's article, but, like, guys, go and read it. It's on, like, goodgaming.com or Reddit. Like, just, like, search Shady Ongoro. You'll find it. And it goes way deeper. Like, we are literally just scratching the surface of it, and we're summarizing a lot of things, and then we're going on and talking about, like, our own, like, our view on the topic as well, right? Like, but he goes much deeper. He gives examples of, like, sample drafts for each of the classes. He has what you were saying, which is, like, a priorities list, which changes depending on the class. Like, it goes deep. We're just covering the bases, because I don't want to just, like, read his article on the Lightforge.
Right. And then, past the big points, he basically just goes in depth into the classes, right? Mm-hmm. And he puts special emphasis on the classes that he believes are the top 5, in which he puts sort of mage and rogue in the first tier. Not surprising. I think we can, nothing controversial there. Hunter in tier 2, paladin and shaman in tier 3. I think the most surprising thing would just be shaman, right?
Well, the only difference from our tier list is shaman.
Yeah,
everything else pretty much follows our tier list. We have mage on tier 2 with hunter instead of in tier 1 with rogue, but whatever.
Right. I know you've been hating on shaman. Like, I've liked it a little bit better, but
it's so one-dimensional. You are so reliant on your spells. You still have very few good minions left. You just, and Shady says the same thing. It's not like he has a different opinion on it. He just thinks your spells can carry you. He just thinks you can just, hang out, use your volcanoes, let people play into your volcanoes, and then end up flipping the board and winning.
Volcano is one of those spells that is basically impossible to play around.
Yeah. Right? Well, it's not impossible to play around, but you are going to lose value from it. It's like Flame Strike. You can play around it, but you're probably going to lose value to it. Only now, you, are definitely going to lose value to it. You can't, box it out. You're just controlling whether you lose, 2 or 3 tempo from it. And, of course, you can make sure you don't get, totally wiped off the board. The problem with Volcano is it still costs so much mana. It's not a cheap spell.
Well, no. That's why it deals so much freaking damage.
Yeah, but it's 7 damage of spells. So if it gets rid of 8 damage on your side of the board, it's just pulling even. At that point, it is just pulling its weight. If it gets rid of 8 more health on your side of the board than on your opponent's side of the board, it's just pulling even. So even if you set the board out and then you volcano and you deal 10 damage, you clear your own board, right? You throw your own board into his stuff or into his face or whatever, and then you play a volcano, it guarantees the whole entire board wipes. What happens if you end up dealing 10 real damage to his minions? What has happened in that situation? And of course, any totems you have will subtract damage from his side, right? It anti-works with so many things. What happens is you've gained 2 tempo. That's wonderful, but that's what 7 mana cards do.
I mean, it's not about the tempo. It's about the card advantage.
You've gained 2 card advantage. Again, that's what 7 mana cards do. You gain 3 cards of card advantage from a sprint, right? You gain 2 tempo from almost any premium card.
Well, with sprint, you gain you definitely gain the card advantage, but
it's fire elemental. You gain 2 tempo and 2 card advantage from a fire elemental. in a
Yeah.
much more
Well,
flexible way.
a volcano is sort of you responding. Like if there's a pie chart and it's like what percentage of that is you guaranteeing the card advantage through your initiative. You know, volcano, it's all of it. And with fire elemental, it's like half, right? With sprint, it's like none. So that's sort of the beauty of volcano, and that's what makes it such an attractive card, which I can understand. Look, I'm with you. I'm with you. I don't love shaman as well, and I've tried variants of shaman, and definitely, if you are to play shaman in this meta,
you need to play control.
Yeah,
you gotta take advantage of your volcano offering rate. Like
I have
that
tried...
is the one like class card that we have raised so much on our tier list compared to where we started out with, because it's just much better than we thought.
Yeah. So that's sort of what is holding shaman back for us. Like there is no possibility of you playing any sort of aggressive shaman unless you get that god draft, right? And that's what sort of weakens it for
not
us.
Even aggressive. I think right now what's happening is people are just not playing they're not playing optimally around what you're doing, because no one's used to volcano. There has never been a card that's like volcano, and so no one knows how to play around it. And it's taking people a long time to figure it out. I mean, I'll admit, I've played into volcanoes before in ways where if I thought about it, I was like, oh, if I really want to play volcano, and I should always want to play around volcano when I'm up, I should have done something different. I should have kept his minions on the board. I should not have removed totems. It creates this weird thing where you have different choices, and it's a very difficult decision. So people are not catching on to it as quickly, but I think they will. Because I don't think the card itself is that good. I think, as a community in the arena, we're just sucking at dealing with it.
That's fair. That's fair. That's definitely something that is possible.
Think about Hunter in January, right? When it was, super good. Was Hunter really super, super good in MSG? No, it wasn't. People just went too far onto the side of control because of the whole Warlock and Mage dominance thing. And then once Hunter became a really deep part of the meta, and Crip came out and said, Hunter's the best class in the arena, all of a sudden Hunter was definitely not even a good class in the arena anymore. Why? Because people adjusted. So right now, I think Shady could be right. I think Shaman could be a step above all the other classes, a significant step above all the other classes. But I don't think it has anything to do with how the meta is or what the shaman's doing. I think it's entirely because people are playing against the shaman incorrectly.
I think that's definitely fair. Definitely possible. Okay. So those are sort of the tiers. And I don't think we have any disagreements. I guess the one question I would have is sort of, and we've seen this complaint come out from, the general Hearthstone community, the arena community, and also I think Crip made a few tweets or maybe even video about it. But we are seeing very, very little diversity, right? In terms of these are the classes that Shady has identified as being the best. I think everyone has identified it being the best. And when you go into the arena, you're basically just seeing the top 4 classes, I would say. Shamans are sprinkled in there, but it is so rare.
You mean when you go into the arena and get 5 wins?
Yeah. Look, you can definitely see that brave Garrosh when you're at 0-0, soon for him to be 0-1, right? But yeah, when you get past sort of even 3-4 wins, right? It's pretty tough seeing the Druids, the Warriors, the Warlocks. Oh man, it's weird not seeing Warlocks around, but they are in a pretty bad spot these days. And I don't know. I mean, do you think it's sort of a problem? It's on one hand, it's always been like this, right? In terms of we've never had all right, sorry. Historically, we've had more metas in which we've had lopsided class sort of distribution than even class distribution. So, what do you think?
I mean, I'm not really bothered by it, I think, as much as most people. And I play all classes evenly, right?
Yeah.
I want all the classes to be balanced. But this is how it's always been, except for one brief window after they took the Karazhan bonus away, and then it got even better when MSG came in. And then they destroyed it in 7.1. So we had a total of 3-4 months of very good class balance in the arena. where almost all of the classes were viable and playable and things were good, and then Blizzard went out and killed it in their experiment to try to make things better. And I think we have to wait until and see what they keep doing with it. Like this is clearly not the ideal result, and I think it's more like if anyone's complaining, it's less that like, oh my god, this is the worst thing ever, and it's more that, well, we were actually doing really well. Why did we take this huge step back? Look, Warrior's unplayable right now. It is. It's as bad as Arena Warriors matters. But like we talked about this in the last Lightforge. I don't want to like keep talking about this in every Lightforge. But the other classes are about as bad as other of the bad classes are. And people are just bad at some of these classes. Like you can't... One, I think people think Warlock is worse than it actually is. Because people are used to the Warlock being so good. And the Warlock felt so hard. So people now think the Warlock is trash because they are used to playing a Warlock that could do all these things. And now they can't do these things anymore. And so people are like, oh, Warlock is broken. But there was a long time where Warlock never had Abyssal Enforcer. Where Warlocks never had your Dooms and your Twisting Nethers appear at any frequent rate. And is it possible to play a Warlock that just has a whole bunch of taunts? You take every removal that you can get, every buff that you can get, and then you try to like deal with it, even if you don't curve out on too perfectly? Yes, it is. You'll do okay. It's not the end of the world. Druid? I think Druid's just as good as Shaman or a Paladin for a good player. I don't rate it that high because people like
just as good as Paladin.
Yeah, I mean my win rates for Druid are always like top half, always, no matter what the meta is, because of the hero power. Because there's only so far down you can bring a class with a good hero power. In the same way, there's only so high you can bring a class like the Warrior with a crap hero power. This is still the arena, and Druid has always been one of the worst classes win rate wise. Out of like any kind of data we have ever seen from anybody, it's been like bottom or second to bottom. Like, even when it, like, everyone felt like it was, like, okay-ish or mid-ish. People are just not doing well with it. Why? Once again, when you look at win rates, it's from average players. And average players don't do well with subtlety. And they don't do well with choices. And they don't do well with inches. They like the big swings. They like the volcanoes. And what they don't like is the Druid, which allows you this like very nuanced hero power that takes damage to your face and can't get through taunts, but still deals 1 damage, which is really good. Their best card right now is a 2-mana 2/2 that does nothing on the board. So I'm not saying you turn plan for that card for like 3 turns in a row, but you have to like be able to, in the big picture, realize what's going on with your deck and with their deck. And you have to be able to use random cards. Like, these are all things that your average player is not the best at. And look, I don't think it's a fluke that I always do better with the Druid than other classes, and most good arena players do better with Druids than the average player does. That's so fair. When you're looking at it and you're saying like, oh, the classes are so unfair, are they really that unfair? Like, Warrior aside, I don't think so. Like, I think Shaman is worse than, or like about equal or worse than Druid. Shady thinks Shaman is like a clear step above classes like Priest and Warlock. And Druid, right? Like, the fact that we're having this disagreement means that we're not all that sure as a community just how bad or good these, not top classes are.
That's fair. Okay. All right. So, once again, if you guys haven't read the report yet, definitely recommend you guys giving it a read. Just some good stuff. Yeah. Also, look out for part 2.
Like, we're going to be discovering more and more about the Ungoro meta every single week, because this is the biggest change, right? This is the biggest rotation change that's happened, and it added a whole bunch of cards, and they're all insanely good. So, there's going to be a lot of things that's happening, and the meta's still changing. The meta has not totally settled yet, because it's been such a big, like, roller coaster ride. So, I mean, look, Blizzard will probably do something before the next expansion when it comes to the arena in terms of the offering rates somehow, because I think enough people are complaining that they'll at least try something. Wouldn't hurt them, and it's very easy for them to do this right now. They just like literally like change some numbers. Like they programmed the tools in already. That's what 7.1 was. So they have these tools, and we'll see how they use them. They know what the problem is. This is not. There's, I think, consensus that there is a problem, which, like we said before, we're grateful for.
Yep. Okay. Time for a question from the GOAT, or no?
Yeah, time for a question from the GOAT. Man, you suck at driving.
I don't know, man. I don't know if you have much stuff to say. I'm not in a I think it's the late starting time, just like out of it, man.
Yeah, it messed up
Yeah.
your rhythm.
Also, no, there's no also. Question from the goat. All right, this week. Speaking of complaints, all right.
Oh man, I thought this was not going to be a complaint Lightforge because the
No,
last
no, this is a
episode was
complaint.
like a complaint Lightforge.
Well, this is okay. So recently, and not just recently. Look, people on Reddit like to complain, right? But there was one post recently that talked about sort of people's dissatisfaction with arena rewards, right?
Oh,
And some of
okay.
them
So
talk.
complaining from a totally different angle. Got
Yes,
it.
yes.
Got it.
But it's sort of focused on how the rewards at that scale from 4 to 5 to 6 wins are not great, right? And then they jump up to 7, and there's a slight jump from like 7 to 8 and to 9, and then it sort of evens out again until you get up there. Basically, and we've had this for a long time, and that complaint has been sort of around since the beginning of time as well. Do you think it's time to change that, like shake it up, or do you still like the way it is? It's like get to 7 or get good.
I'm going to bounce this right back to you, and you should answer this question first because I have a very clear answer to this, but I don't want you piggybacking off me. I am forcing you to think about your own question.
I think it's fine right now. In fact, and this might be controversial, I don't mind at all like if they made it even more polarized. The way I see it is this. It's like, because if you, all right, here are my goals for arena rewards. I think that you should make the floor a bit high, right? Like you don't want people to pay 150 gold and say, if you get 3 wins, like you suck, I'm only giving you a pack, and you get no gold, you're just losing 50 gold, right? I think that's a huge disincentive for people to play. I think you need that floor to be high. At the same time, I think you want that sort of the glory of 12 wins, right? You want that to seem like really good, and that's sort of what they did with the heroic tavern brawl, right? Like they made the 12 rewards like insanely good. So I sort of like that big polarized distribution. And in the middle, it's sort of, I'm not saying we don't care about those people.
You mean all of our listeners almost?
Right.
Like 90% of our listeners?
I think it should be, one of those situations in which, you want the high floor to make sure no one, thinks of entering the arena as too punishing. But I think you do want to get that really nice reward at the end of the golden road, right? So that's sort of my idea. I'm just like, I understand people's frustration with it because you do sink, there's some risk involved in the arena, and at the same time you're spending quite a bit of time, and at the end if you just get 6 wins and then you don't, like, people are like, oh, I get a pack, like 80 gold and a common card, right? I think that's very possible at 6 wins. And they're just like, wow, this feels pretty terrible. And I can understand, but to me, I wouldn't mind it being more polarized.
Okay. So I love it when we're in sync, because we have not talked about this at all before this question is brought up, but I'm 100% on board with what you're saying. And I want to break this down because I am also very cognizant that literally probably 90% of our viewers fall between the like 4 win and 6 win like average like range, which means that what we're basically saying is we want you guys to get screwed more by the system rather than and the system's already screwing you. This is like totally true. It's always been hollowed out like that. So let me explain the system first. The system is you enter the arena, your floor of a reward is to just basically like, I don't know, like lose 50 gold and get like 5 dust or like a card or something stupid like that. And then you get a pack, which is your 100 gold commitment. Remember, your gold can't do anything besides buy packs. So 100 gold equals 1 pack. That's it. That's all 100 gold means. And then as you gain wins, you really don't get, like, your first 2 wins until you get to 3 wins per run actually give you about like 25 gold per win. Like, that's pretty huge. And it's also pretty easy. Remember, percentile wise, going from like 1 win to 2 win is like jumping some percentile, but like it's just 1 more win, right? Like your variance will carry you there because variance still exists. On the other hand, if you want to consistently get like 5 or 6 wins, that's really, really, really freaking hard. Like, the amount of skill and effort that you have to put into being an arena player that gets, like, 5 or 6 wins on a very frequent basis versus one that, like, tops out at 5 or 6 wins and you're happy about it is very different, right? And for that, you were, like, barely rewarded. You were rewarded with, like, 10 gold per win, even as the wins get harder and harder, right? And that seems like it's wrong, because you're putting in more effort. You are actually that much better than you were before, and you're getting rewarded very little. And that's... that does not feel good, like Merp said. But then once you get over a hump, or if you're really a 6-win player, you're going to hit like 10, 11, 12 a lot, right? And those rewards are really good. Like, 11-win rewards are great. Like, 12, they're sometimes even better than 12-win rewards, depending on if you want gold or not. 10-win rewards are not bad. Like, you start getting the rewards again. So the incentive structure is broken down so that when you're entering, they keep you afloat, right? It's like almost like taxes, right? Like, you give to the people who need it the most to keep them in the game so they don't rebel. And then, rather than how taxes actually work, which in theory at least, you take much more from the people who are getting a lot out of this, like crushing all the noobs, and you're like, all right, we can't give you like all of the stuff because we need to keep the noobs coming in, otherwise there's no one for you to crush. Like, you understand, right? But instead, it's the middle that gets crushed. And the middle is where most people are, which seems really weird, but I like it, because when you're in the middle, you're playing the arena. That's your reward. You're playing the arena. And if you're in the middle and you don't have that top thing to look at, it's like, oh my god, I get so much rewards if I get 12. You don't feel as good, even if you're only feeling good because they took away the middle from you and gave it to the bottom, right? Like, they're not taking the middle away and giving it to the top. The top is actually, like, under-rewarded, if anything. Like, it's really hard to get a 12-win run percentage-wise. And your rewards do not match up for that. But instead, they're hollowing out that, like, 5 to, like, 8 win zone, and they're giving it to the 1 to 3 win players. And that's fine, because as a 5 to 8 win player, you're really trying to shoot for that 12-win run. And that's something that the 1 to 3 win players don't even get to do. Like, they're just shooting for the crappy 5 or 6 win rewards and thinking, oh, cool, I won a whole bunch. So I think this is a very well-designed system. The one thing, and obviously this, like, the one thing that I will say that does need to change is that you should never, ever, no matter if you get 1 wins or 0 wins or 12 wins, you should never, ever be able to get a non-golden card in the arena. Like, as a reward. Yeah. It should only be golden cards. If you think, like, if you need to, like, balance out the reward system, just, like, reduce the amount of dust for, like, the other things, you know?
Right. So reduce, like, the chance, like, reduce the rewards for other times, right? Like, give a spike of a golden card, but reduce, like, everything else a little bit.
Yeah. Just because, totally, like, common cards are the worst. Like, not even common cards. I mean, like, regular non-golden cards are the worst feeling. Because if you're an arena player, you get a golden card, especially if you're not, like, someone with a full golden collection, you at least get something, right? Like, next time you draft the card, it'll be golden in the arena. You got something.
Right.
You get a common card, you get nothing.
I do. What was it? Like, there was one time I got, like, a 2-win run, and I was like, well, it can't get any worse. And then my reward was a pack and an eye for an eye. I'm like, great, thanks. It's perfect. Yeah, those definitely do feel the worst. Yeah. So, well, we're in agreement on this.
So from a reward structure perspective, like, this is how you're supposed to set it up, because it, like, actually keeps the system very well balanced. And it kind of sucks because the listener here to the Lightforge is probably in that middle zone that's getting screwed over for rewards, but you're already semi-infinite. Right? Like, you can, like, play an arena a day, or at worst an arena every other day. And as long as you do your quest rewards, you're fine. You don't need the help. What you need, and what Blizzard is doing, is giving enough gold back and giving enough stuff back to the 1 to 3 win players so that they keep coming back, so you can keep winning. Like, that's a good thing for you, for your win rate overall.
Yep. All right, so that's a question from the GOAT.
Question from the GOAT is brought to you by our patrons at patreon.com/grinninggoat. Thank you guys so much for your support, as always. And now let's move on to Card Good Bad. What are we doing for Card Good Bad today?
Card Good Bad, we're doing Emerald Hive Queen. For those of you who don't know what the card is, it is a 1-mana, 2/3 minion that says your minions cost 2 more mana, right? So, in terms of Card Good Bad, if you are watching this right now on YouTube, you see there are some numbers underneath Emerald Hive Queen, which I'm going to toss to Adwita to explain these numbers and why they're relevant.
Okay. Emerald Hive Queen is rated as 61 on our tier list. That's why the 61 is there. 81 is the Paladin rating, and 106 is our rating for Rogue. And yep. I just wanted to put all three numbers there. Usually we just put the number of like the neutral one. But Emerald Hive Queen is so different for each class. And we were talking last week about how much of a difference one drop makes in certain classes that can use one drops to fill in for like totally legit two drops. And Emerald Hive Queen works really well with these classes. So it gets a really huge spike with Rogue and with Paladin, where if your opponent doesn't do anything, because what's the fear of Emerald Hive Queen, right? It's a 1 mana 2/3, which should be amazing. But if your opponent doesn't play a 2-drop, it's not doing anything. It's preventing you from playing a 2-drop. Or if you don't have a 2-drop, you still may or may not be able to kill it to play your 3-drop. That's the worst, right? Like, your opponent was never going to curve out anyway and didn't have anything, and now you've missed your 3-drop and you only have a 2/3 on the board. And at the earliest possible opportunity, you have to throw your 2/3 into anything just to deal 2 damage so that you can play your hand. Like, that's an awful feeling.
Right. And Emerald Hive Queen, it's also one of those minions that its value in the game will differ depending on whether you go first or go second. And this is actually a card in which you actually want to go second with. And we touched upon this in like the coaching session that we did on that we just did on Friday. That in which we actually drafted an Emerald Hive Queen, and whether or not you keep it in your starting hand, a lot depends on the like what class you're facing, right?
What class were you?
We were Paladin.
Okay, yeah, so that makes more sense.
Yeah. Paladin, you know.
I'm like, what kind of bad coaching advice did you give that you drafted an Emerald Hive Queen?
Right. But so a lot of it depends on what class you're facing. And also, if you're going second, you actually like Emerald Hive Queen a little bit more because you're going into your opponent's more powerful turns. And if they skip their turn, basically they're skipping even more mana than they would be if you were going first, right? And with that coin, you're just banking the flexibility. And if you get out the Emerald Hive Queen on turn 1 anyways, it's almost as if you're using a coin.
Yep.
So all of these things sort of like increase or decrease the Emerald Hive Queen considerably, which is sort of why why you can see, you know, it goes from a 61 to a, you know, neutral class to a 106 in Rogue. And even these scores like do not reflect the difference between going first and going second as one of these classes.
If you want to map it out, like this is what happens when you go second, right? Your opponent goes first, does nothing or does something. You go second, you still have the coin, you play a 2/3. If your opponent did something, your 2/3 eats it because it's going to be a 2/1 or a 1/3, right? And you've already killed a card and you're already highly successful. And if your opponent doesn't do anything and doesn't play it, if your opponent plays a 2-drop the turn after, you can trade your 2/3 in and then play your 2-drop or whatever, right? It doesn't matter. You just played a 1 mana 2/3 with no consequence, right? That's great, no matter how you look at it. But the dangerous situation is your opponent doesn't do anything turn 2 because, like, you know, they don't have anything or they choose not to or they want to freeze you or whatever. But if you are a Paladin or a Rogue, you can do something on turn 2 no matter what your opponent does, and it impacts the board immediately. You can put a 1/1 on the board. You can dagger. These are amazing, amazing things because now your opponent needs to put something on the board or they've skipped their turn 3. That's ridiculous. You can't skip your turn 3. And if your opponent skips their turn 3, you hero power again, right? Like, you're still fine. And your opponent has skipped their turn 3. They missed their turn 3 curve as you've been building up your board. So your opponent does something on turn 3, you can coin out your 4-drop using your coin now, having not lost any tempo. Think that you're a Paladin. You have put 3 damage onto the board into your opponent's turn 3. That's pretty good for not having used the coin. That's the equivalent of having a 3/2 on the board. And you had so much more flexibility on it. And if you had spells to play or whatever, even better, right? Like, this is assuming worst case scenario here. And remember, almost all 3-drops now are like 3/3s or 4/3s, so it's pretty good. Of course, you know, you might be wondering, like, 81 isn't that good. It's, like, seriously below average. If it's that good in a Paladin, why is it only 81? It's still just a 1 mana 2/3. It's still not that great in the late game. And you probably do want to do more than your hero power. Like, hero power is your backup. But you probably want to play a 2-drop if you can, right? You're a Paladin. You still need to try to get the board. But it's like a good it's good enough to be a bad card, whereas it's a totally unplayable card in the other classes. And in Rogue, it's actually above average. Like, you're actually encouraged to take it.
All right, so that's Emerald Hive Queen. To answer the big question, is it good or bad? It depends on the class. Most of the time, it is bad.
Most of the time, it is super bad. And we get so much pushback on it. People are like, oh, but this one time, yes, but this one time I played Dirty Rat and I pulled out my opponent's whatever and it won me the game, right? Doesn't make Dirty Rat a great card.
Yep.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. Class Talk Priest. What's he got?
Oh, man, Priest. The class that got weaker, but still is just, it's so annoying. It's annoying when you play as Priest, and it's annoying when you play against Priest. Because Priest still operates on, like, certain cards that they sort of have to have, right? Mm-hmm. And not only do they have to draft it, they have to pick it up at the right time. We're talking about Potion of Madness, Cabal Talon Priest, Shadow or Pain, Shadow or Death. They have amazing cards that, can swing the game tremendously. But, you're looking at a class that is very inflexible, right? Mm-hmm. And when they lost, when Un'Goro came out, they lost, they gained dinosaurs like everyone did, but they lost dragons. Like, Dragon Priest is no longer a thing.
And that was just 3 synergies. Because you were picking those cards anyway. Those are powerful dragons the priests have.
Oh, yeah. And now it's, if you remember a month ago, it was so easy for a Draconid like, not only to get Draconid Operative on 5, but for it to draw a card, right?
All of my opponents still play Draconid Operatives and draw cards.
Yeah, well, that's how it is, right? Like, that's how it always is. When you see a priest above, like, 5 or 6 wins, this is still a priest that has the Dragonfire potions, that has the Potion of Madnesses, and managed to get all this stuff. So priest it's definitely one of those classes in which, if you're trying to high roll, it's not a bad class to high roll, right? Like, you can, like, its ceiling is still very, very high. It's just, can you get that early game? Can you draft and then draw the right cards at the right time? That's the tough part. So that's sort of why Priest is not better in the meta.
And none of those things take any skill.
No, not really. For one of their new cards as well, it's like, what card are you going to get from Free from Amber?
That's so much skill. You got to pick the biggest one.
I had one run in which I just, man, I think I like, what are the cards that you really want? You want Ysera or Yashiraj, right? Or, you're fine with the 12/12, like a Deathwing or something. But sometimes you just get like an 8/8, right? And in which case you're paying 8 mana for an 8/8. That's not good. You don't want that. And it's hard because you have to commit the mana and then you don't really know what you're going to get. So once again, it's one of those other examples of Priest just, could be powerful, but sometimes not. And a lot of things are out of your control.
Yep. I think that's a good summary of Priest. So how do you play as the Priest? What do you want to draft? For me, I want to skip the 2s because there are no 2s that are class Priest cards left in the arena that do major work. So the 2/3, basically their version of a Sorcerer's Apprentice is quite good. It's good, but I don't want it. Like, I don't want to treat it as a 2-drop. I don't want to build a curve with it. I want to have it just as a card for tempo. The curve for Priest starts at 3. It doesn't start at 1. It doesn't start at 2. If you're taking cards from 2 or 1, they better do like a lot of other stuff, right? They better be your Matter Bombers. They better be your Mad Bombers. They better be like your cards that can discount your spells, or they are like a Northshire Cleric or something like that regains its value. Loot Hoarders, those are all fine. But what you really need is 3 and above, because here's the thing with Priest: you're going to get a lot of big cards. You're going to be offered them because you have Free from Amber as one of your cards in Un'Goro, and it is a spell, and so it's going to be offered a whole ton. And you already have Mind Control, which was a spell, and you're going to be offered it a very significant amount. So you already have these 2 big cards eating up spots. in your offering pool, and you have all these good Ongoro cards. We were talking about this before. Big minions bad, right? You're gonna get a lot of big minions as priests. You just are. So when you have to shift your curve up, something has to give. And what can't possibly give are, one, your removals or silences or things like that, right? Because if that gives, then you have no way to deal with the board and you lose. As the priest, you want as many board clears as absolutely possible. But you're not guaranteed to get many of them. But still, just like any kind of removals you get, you need to take. So you can't take those away from the priest. That's how they live. And so what else have you got? You take away the curve. That's all you can take away. You can't be empty in the middle. You can't not have your utility and spells, especially when they're like Merp set, right? Like they're super powerful. And you can't take away your big cards because you're just going to get offered too many of them. So when you're building your typical priest in the early draft, you have to keep all that in mind, and that means you have to just deprioritize your 2-drops. I mean, don't take a bad card over a 3/2, but don't make it such a big deal. Like, sometimes you'll get a draft that does curve out, right? And it's great. And you're playing like a normal priest, and you're trying to get value from the board. But remember, your Talon Priest offering bonus is gone right now. Talon Priest is also a minion. Your 6 mana 6/6, God, I forgot what that thing's called, Temple Enforcer, right? Like, that still exists, but again, a minion. And then you have Power Word Shield, which is a spell, so it gets a spell bonus. But again, nothing in Ongoro is doing anything on your board. So normally a priest is really scary when it's on the board, right? You lose Valen's Chosen, all of a sudden you're not that scary on the board anymore. You lose Dark Cultist, you're not that scary on the board anymore. You're still scarier than other classes, but it can't carry you the same way.
Yep. All right. So that's sort of where Priest is these days. I would not personally recommend playing it. Some people like it, you know, just as they're a fan of the class, right? And Priest is definitely a class in which if you get on the board, you can absolutely dominate. Hero power just becomes the best in the game if you have a firm grasp of the board. But it's getting that firm grasp of the board that is pretty tough. I don't know. Like, play Priest cautiously, I guess, or pick it at your own caution.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's it from me. And we'll see you next time on the Lightforge.
Ending strong.
Until then, this is Hadwigda.
This is Murph. See you guys next week.